Hey everybody, quick update. It's the beginning of July. I'm actually recording this on Independence Day. It probably won't come out for a few days though because I have loads to do. Just wanted to quickly show you what I've been up to and what I've got done. At the back end of the month, despite being on the road, I've been quite productive, so I'm quite chuffed with that. We'll just work the camera left to right. We've got the Roman Triarii there, and I'll show close-ups and stuff in a bit. I just wanted to do a kind of survey quickly. Then we got an Alabama Brigade there for the American Civil War in the foreground. Everything just kind of came together this month. Even though I was on the road a lot, I still managed to get tons done, so I can't really complain. I've just been in the zone, really. Weird when that happens, even though it's been really sunny outdoors and I've been spending a lot of time out there. You can see the rebasing project is now complete. This is the last of it, the stuff I got from Dave, all that Union goodness, the guns and the infantry there. And then at the back there, we've got a lone War of Spanish Succession gun for the British, so your Blenheim period, that I managed to get done. And then an English Civil War gun, which I've just been in the mood for artillery recently. I don't know why. I think it's because they paint up pretty quickly, all said and done. So managed to get loads done, as you can see. And this is not everything for June, obviously, because I've already shown you that. So I'm quite pleased with that. So we'll start, I think, by looking at the Triarii, which are these are Old Glory 15s. They are lovely casts. I've shown you the Hastati and the Principes before. The Triarii, much of a muchness. The only real difference is that the spears are separate, so you've got to kind of glue them on. They've been quite fiddly because you've got to make sure that you don't knock them at all. Which I've done a few times now, mainly on the front ones, so that's going to be an issue. I think if I do another unit of these, I will probably make it so that the spears are, or that they're based so that the spears don't protrude over the edge of the base. But other than that, I use the same method as I did with the Hastati and the Principes, so that they mix in nicely. I've not opted for any shield transfers, any of that rubbish. I just thought, plain shields would look good for a Republican era army, for a sort of austere, Republican look. I used the method that was recommended to me by Kevin Krauser. So I've used, a soft tone to wash the figures, and I used the one of the what are they called? Contrast paints to do the skin, and they came out pretty well this time, I think. Didn't bother with too many highlights or anything, just a touch here and there, but for the most part, I just wanted to get them done. I'm quite happy with how they turned out. Alright, now moving on, we've got the Alabama Brigade, which I've based in 15mm, which I've based for Fire and Fury. These are Essex miniatures. I bought them probably in the early 2000s, so they've been sat in the blade pile for some time, and now they are finished. I dug through my collection of Essex figures, and I found that I only have 2 more command stands worth of infantry to do for the Confederate packs. I don't have any Union stuff with them, so that's not a problem, but just the 2 command stands to get done, and then that's the infantry complete. And then I have a ton of cavalry, dismounted cavalry. I have 2 guns which I've currently got on the painting desk, so hopefully get those done pretty quickly. Again, what's there to say? These are Confederate troops. I've opted for a slightly more uniformed look here, so I've given most of them, I think pretty much all of them, bar 1 or 2, grey jackets, a lot of blue trousers there. I think I even went for a grey trouser on one chap. The flag is from Revo Flags. I'm not a huge fan. They're printed on like a really thick, like glossy card almost, so it's very difficult to manipulate the flags to make them like wavy or anything. So I've just kind of stuck them down so they kind of, shows you what they are. Again, there's not much to say. The painting method was very much similar to the Republicans that we just saw, although I opted for a slightly brighter look for these figures, just trying to keep them a bit more, make them pop a bit more on the tabletop, because the Confederate Army is a lot of greys, so a little bit of pop of colour is quite nice. This is great. I'm really happy the way this has turned out. I think we're getting to a point now where I'm chipping away at that lead mountain, the Civil War stuff at any rate, where I'm going to be able to do a sort of Confederate status report or situation report soon, showing off what's done and what's not done. So no complaints there. That's more stuff done. You will notice some of the bases only have 2 figures on instead of 3. That's just because I ended up with weird numbers, and I thought I'm not gonna end up with spare figures just for the sake of having spare figures. And like, I think when you mix them together, you don't really notice the 2 rather than the 3. So that's what I did. No regrets. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at this English Civil War gun from Warlord Games. This is a light gun. Really enjoyed painting this. I love artillery pieces, specifically ones like this, because they have a sort of vignette quality to them. They've got like telling a story. So we've got the chap there scouring the barrel. I actually watched a video today of Ralph's in which he talked about how copper was often used as the metal for like scouring the inside of a barrel. I should probably change it to copper, although I don't know if during the English Civil War they were still using wood or something, because they maybe didn't know about the copper not sparking. But anyway, so a couple of things had to do with this kit. The chap with the ramrod is ludicrously low relative to the gun barrel, so I've sort of built up a little mound for him to stand upon. It looks slightly silly, but I mean, there wasn't really another option there. To make it to have the actual rod like even vaguely level with the barrel, which is not perfectly, obviously. Paint wise, I just used a varied palette. I haven't sort of tried to uniform them at all. I just made them look like civilian types. And then the gun limber, I found some references in Ospreys about the gun frames. They just appear to have been natural wood, so that's what I've opted for. And then the metals, I've gone for a sort of very dark gunmetal grey, and then a barrel, I forget what it's called, bronze barrel I think it's called, by a foundry as a triad for the actual barrel itself. And I think it's come out pretty nicely. Again, these Warlord figures, the plastics are not my cup of tea, but I will say that their metals are quite nice. They're a slightly smaller figure. They're a bit more kind of nicely detailed, I think. And I think a plane's just gone overhead. Hopefully that didn't get picked up. But yeah, and then again, I've tried to make the base interesting by adding some foliage and flowers and such, just to kind of make things look a bit more, create a bit of visual interest on a base that's quite large. Because of the positioning of the gunner to the front of the barrel, I've had to use a very long base. This is typically a base I would use for pikes leveled. So I think it's 120mm by 60, slightly long, but I mean, I don't really care. It's an artillery piece, and you will notice how the right hand side of the end where the gunner is, the scourer is slightly raised. The MDF base seems to have warped a little bit. I think the PVA glue I've used maybe soaked into the MDF and caused it to pull upwards slightly. And unlike the back of the figure, there's not enough weight at the front to push it down when it was drying, I think. So it's caused a slight uplift. Not the end of the world. I'm not really going to cry about it. But I think ideally Gabions would help. Okay, and then last but certainly not least, the 6mm gun from Baccus. This was a test piece, artillery for the War of Spanish Succession, Melberian army. Again, it's 6mm, so I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to look great up close like it is shown now, but when you have like 3 guns together in a battery, it should look pretty sweet. And then obviously when you have infantry around it, it's going to look pretty nice. But again, I follow the same basic principles that I've been using throughout to just kind of try to make the figures kind of a bit brighter than usual. So I've used a very bright red. I've not used any washes or anything. I'm purposefully trying to keep things kind of popping on the table with these 6mm figures, and I'm quite happy with how this turned out. So this was just the first of the trial guns, basically. What I can do now, obviously, now that I've got my recipe down, I can just rinse and repeat and pump the rest of them out. The 6mm project is not particularly high priority, so I'll just chip away at this when I feel like it. 6mm and 10mm have the virtue of being really, really easy to paint and quick. You just dab, 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 and you get lots done very quickly. So I'm quite chuffed with how that's turned out. Can't complain, really. Yeah, so that was just a cheeky little 6mm gun that I got done. I've got some cavalry I'd like to get finished soon as well, just as a test. Alright, so the last of the Union infantry that was gifted to me by my friend Dave. I've not repainted any of the figures, same as the other stuff you've seen so far from the Union army. I just rebased it for Fire and Fury. Again, I can't really claim any credit here other than the basing. I will say that one thing I've observed is that a good basing job will go a long way to making up for figures that don't look so hot. So these are quite old figures. They were painted a very long time ago. They don't look amazing, but I will say that with a fresh basing scheme, with fresh basing materials, and with an effort made on there, because before that they were just kind of green, they were card with kind of green flock on them. It kind of looked a bit naff. Proper basing really does make things tie them together, so I'm quite happy with how these turned out. Again, I've got no intention to touch them up or do anything like that. I want to keep them as they are, as a record of Dave's efforts rather than mine. But the basing is nice because now they'll be able to be used with Fire and Fury without any trouble. And hopefully be able to play that soon. There's a chap at a club that I attend down in the States who is really into Fire and Fury, and he's had a bit of a bug recently for that. So hopefully we can try that out. And then obviously there's a rule set we're play testing in the club in Canada that's coming close to being kind of in a super ready state, so that's another opportunity to test there as well, because it's obviously scale and figure agnostic, and the basing is kind of roughly tied into the Fire and Fury style, so it'll work for that. Okay, and then we'll finish up with some Union artillery. Again, rebasing job from my side. One thing I will say is, you'll probably see this as we come around the horn, but one of the bases is not the same size as the others. I will be honest with you, I had these all lined up next to each other, and I was so tired this week that I didn't even realize that one of the bases was a 40 by 30 mil base, so it's both longer and wider than everything else it's next to. And that's okay. You know what? It's a marginal error. It's not a big deal, but it hopefully tells you how tired I was. Figures, again, painted by Dave. I've not done anything to them, just rebased them. I think the Fire and Fury artillery basing size is a bit tight, really. And then the other thing as well is that I don't really have many options here when it comes to where to position the gunners relative to the gun, because if you've got a guy actually firing it, so pulling the lanyard, the gun has to be quite far forward, which it was a bit of a squeeze. I also don't think you really want to be standing near the muzzle of a gun when it's being fired. So, anyway. Okay, then I just want to show you a delivery that just came this last week. I've wanted to get some pikes for a while, and North Star seem to be the only people in town that do great ones. I almost bought them from Brigade Games, but the postage costs meant I might as well just get them from North Star myself. Because you don't pay VAT when you buy from North Star, so you save kind of whatever you pay on postage. You save on VAT, you pay on postage, roughly. I got this Crusader Minatures thing. It's a Byzantine Emperor. That was Catherine's gift to me. She wanted me to have it, so I got it. I got the plastic pikes, the 18mm plastic pikes, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then I got some 100mm metal pikes. These are my personal tasters for the metal ones, but there's a reason for the plastics. And then I got, I think it's Pitubert and Triarii, the Boer of War commanders, and then a Crimean pack of NCOs dressing the ranks, which I'm quite chuffed with. So that was just something to add a bit of interest to the Russian stands, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, so I wanted to quickly take a look at the pikes. So I bought two sets of pikes, as you saw earlier, plastic and metal, and I wanted to see the difference between them. Now, plastic has the benefit of being a little bit flexible, so it tends to not snap off the figure it's glued to as much because it's got a bit of flex. It'll tend to bend a little bit. The downside, of course, is that the plastic's less robust, so if you have a super brittle plastic, it's likely to just snap. Early Perry figures had that problem. So I've got a Vendel Epigoni pikeman there, which has been waiting for a pike for about 20 years at this point, and I just want to dry fit and see how it sits there in terms of the fit to the hand. That's one thing, because these Vendel figures have got these massive old ham hands, right? So you need a pretty thick shaft. And then relative to the figure, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's long enough by what a definition of a Sarissa is. I think people tend to go slightly longer, but I think for a wargaming figure, it's reasonable. It's not, going overboard. It's relatively sane in terms of the length. The pike seems to have a lot of flex in it, which is good. It needs a bit of wobble. Some of the very early plastics that the Perry's brought out, particularly bayonets and stuff, would just snap off, which was not great. and then also they would pop off the figure itself if it's too rigid, which I suspect would be the case with these metal pikes. So the metal pikes here, these are the 100mm ones. They're slightly thinner gauge. My personal taste is for the metal, but again, it's slightly taller, probably more of a reasonable look to it, but not as good a fit in the actual hand there, because like I said, these Vendel figures are massive. I've got a pike block of 40 blokes that need pikes, so I reckon I'll use the plastics for them and then use these metal pikes with my foundry figures and such, where I don't need to fill as much of a gap. But they look really nice, both of the pikes actually. I mean, the plastic ones look a bit more cartoony, I think. They're a bit more exaggerated design, but I'm not going to complain. I think it's a fine compromise that we have to strike here. And with the Vendel figures, I don't know if I'll ever paint any more Vendel phalangites. I don't have any more. This will probably be the one pike block. Who knows, maybe in the future. I think Rose and Thistle sell them now. Thistle and Rose sell them now in the States, so I might be able to get some more, but it's not a priority. So I think I'll use plastic for them, and yeah, it should look good. These figures are painted a very long time ago. They just need finishing. They need their shields done, and they need their pikes, and then they need to be based, right? So hopefully in the coming weeks I'll be able to get that done. Hopefully that's something that's done by the end of July. But they've been waiting to be done for an incredibly long time, which is a real pity, really, because they're quite great figures. Very, very of a style. You either love them or you hate them. Unfortunately, the Vendel ones are quite chunky. And then one of the other packs I just wanted to show off, really, is this NCO pack, which has got this NCO who's kind of pushing guys with his musket. And then there are, I think there's 3 dudes, or maybe... yeah, there's one flinching, and then there's 3 guys who look like they're being pushed forward, right? So he's holding his musket at the trail, and the other 2 look like they're being kind of pushed forward against their will. So, I thought that's quite a cute little vignette for the unit. And as I've said in the past, I'm going to do these wide bases for the command stands for my Russians, which means I actually have the opportunity to do little vignettes. Now, usually people use casualties for that. In this case, if I can have something other than casualties, that'd be quite nice too. So I'm going to go for little vignettes like this. So this is the figures being pushed forward. That's 4 figures, right? That takes up all that real estate on a front base. So it allows me to kind of tell a little story in the front rank by the flag and all that. And then this guy, he's an NCO with looks like a switch, or not switch really, but more of a stick, and he's whacking this guy, and the other guy's flinching. Again, something to put front and center in the unit to really just create some visual interest in an army that is unfortunately, for the most part, quite dull and repetitive. It's just the fact of painting up bulk of troops, right? Anyway, that's it. That's it for the month. That's it for the start of July, really. Here's some videos of my dog running through the forest with me. It's been very busy. I'm hoping to see other people's videos soon. Trying to keep up on that front. Always exciting to see what other people are up to.